Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories. The house looked ordinary in the late evening glow, the kind of stillness that usually meant safety. A single lamp hummed softly in the corner of the living room, casting warm light over clean walls and neatly arranged furniture. Outside, traffic moved as usual, unaware of what was brewing behind the closed door. Nothing appeared wrong. Nothing warned of danger. She shifted on the couch, one hand instinctively resting on her swollen belly. Her back ached, her legs felt heavy, and the baby stirred restlessly, as if sensing her unease. Pregnancy had taught her to listen to her body, but tonight it was her instincts that felt louder. Across the room, her husband sat rigidly, scrolling on his phone, jaw clenched. He didn't look at her. When she spoke, his replies were short, almost rehearsed, stripped of warmth. Silence filled the spaces between them, thick and uncomfortable. Every small sound felt amplified, the ticking clock, the scrape of a chair, his sharp exhale. She tried to tell herself she was overthinking, that hormones were playing tricks on her mind. For the baby's sake, she forced calm into her breathing, whispering silent reassurances, "Everything is fine. We're safe." But the details wouldn't let her rest. The way he avoided eye contact. The door he shut too hard. The look he gave her, lingering, cold, unfamiliar. It wasn't anger alone. It was something deeper, darker. Her heart began to race for reasons she couldn't explain. She felt it then, a creeping certainty, like distant thunder before a storm. Something was wrong. Something terrible was coming. And even though she didn't yet have the words for it, her body already knew. It started with something small, almost insignificant, an unpaid bill, a question about money that shouldn't have mattered. She spoke carefully, choosing her words the way she always did lately, trying not to provoke him. But his response came sharp and fast, laced with accusation. He questioned where she'd been, who she'd talked to, why she was always asking for more. The tension that had been simmering all evening finally surfaced. His voice grew louder, harsher. Each sentence felt like a blade, slicing into her sense of safety. She defended herself quietly, reminding him she was carrying their child, reminding him she was tired, that she wasn't his enemy. Her hands trembled, but she kept her tone even, hoping reason would calm him. It didn't. Something shifted in his eyes, an instant where anger tipped into something uncontrollable. 1 second he was standing across the room. The next he was moving toward her, fast and deliberate. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She stood up instinctively, stepping back, her palm flying to her belly in a protective reflex. "Stop," she said, her voice barely steady. The shove came without warning. She stumbled, gasping, shock freezing her body before fear could catch up. Then his hands were on her neck, fingers tightening, pressure crushing her throat. Her mind screamed, "This isn't real. This can't be happening." This was the man she slept beside, the father of her unborn child. The baby kicked hard inside her, a sudden, desperate movement that sent panic ripping through her chest. She clawed at his arms, struggling for air as the room seemed to close in around them. The walls blurred, the ceiling spun, and every second stretched unnaturally long. The air felt thick, impossible to breathe. Time slowed, heartbeat by heartbeat, as the argument disappeared, replaced by pure, terrifying survival. The pressure around her neck intensified, cutting off her breath in sharp, merciless waves. Her lungs burned as she fought instinctively, gasping for air that refused to come. Each inhale was shallow, useless, like breathing through fire. Her vision began to blur at the edges, colors bleeding into darkness, while a loud ringing filled her ears, drowning out everything else. Her thoughts scattered wildly, crashing into one another. The baby. Please. Her mind clung to that single truth. There was a life inside her that depended on her survival. Images flashed uncontrollably. Tiny clothes folded away, a name she hadn't shared yet, a future she had imagined but not lived. Fear tightened its grip, heavier than the hands crushing her throat. She didn't want to die here. She didn't want to die like this. She tried to focus on his face, searching for something familiar, something human. What she saw terrified her more than the lack of air. His expression was twisted with rage, yet eerily calm, detached, as if she were no longer a person to him. The man she loved was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. Her movements slowed. Her hands, once clawing desperately at his arms, grew weak. The strength drained from her body as panic gave way to confusion. Her chest ached violently, every cell screaming for oxygen. The room spun, tilting sideways, sound stretching and fading. Then came the moment she realized she couldn't fight anymore. Her arms fell limp. The burning in her lungs dulled into a heavy numbness. The ringing in her ears softened, replaced by a strange quiet. Darkness crept inward, closing like a curtain being drawn. Her final conscious thought wasn't fear, it was grief. For the life inside her. For everything left unfinished. And then there was nothing. No pain. No sound. Only silence. Sirens shattered the quiet of the neighborhood as emergency services arrived, red and blue lights washing over the house in harsh flashes. Inside, the scene was chaotic, voices overlapping, footsteps rushing, but emotionally, it felt frozen. The warmth that once filled the room was gone, replaced by a sterile urgency that left no space for grief. Paramedics moved quickly, kneeling beside her still body. They checked her airway, pressed fingers to her neck, listened for breath that never came. One shook his head slightly. Another tried again, longer this time, hoping for something, anything. There was no response. No pulse. Her body lay unnaturally quiet, her pregnant belly rising no more. They spoke in clipped, professional terms. Blood pressure. None. Pulse. Absent. Unresponsive. The words were clinical, detached, painfully calm compared to the reality of a young pregnant woman lying lifeless on the floor. Someone glanced at the clock and said it out loud, the time of death. The sentence landed heavily, final and unforgiving. Nearby, her husband stood off to the side. He didn't rush forward. He didn't scream or collapse. His face remained controlled, distant, almost blank, as if watching a scene he wasn't part of. It unsettled everyone who noticed. A sheet was pulled over her body, covering her face, then her stomach. A tag was attached. In moments, she was no longer treated as a person, but as remains to be transported. No one could yet say what this meant for the baby inside her. A chilling stillness settled over the house. Death had been declared. And it felt absolute. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing her inside with the low mechanical hum of equipment and the sharp smell of antiseptic. Protocol continued as routine: secure the body, document the time, prepare for transport. She lay motionless on the stretcher, covered, silent, officially gone. Then something felt off. One of the paramedics paused, eyes narrowing as he adjusted a monitor more out of habit than hope. He leaned closer, watching the screen, then her chest. For a split second, he thought he imagined it, a faint rise, barely visible. He lifted the sheet slightly, his breath catching. "Did you see that?" he asked, his voice suddenly tight. Another paramedic stepped in, checking again. A shallow gasp escaped her lips, so weak it could have been missed entirely. The monitor flickered with a reading that didn't make sense. Not enough to call stable, but enough to shatter certainty. Confusion exploded into motion. "She's breathing, barely," someone said, disbelief giving way to urgency. The stretcher jolted as CPR began again, harder this time, faster. Hands pressed down on her chest, rhythmically, relentlessly. Oxygen was forced into her lungs. Commands flew back and forth, sharp and urgent. Her body responded. A twitch of her fingers. A strained inhale. A pulse, faint but real, returned beneath searching fingers. Every sign of life felt fragile, like it could vanish at any second. The ambulance transformed into a battleground, death on one side, survival on the other. The radio crackled as they called ahead to the hospital, voices raised over the siren. Adrenaline surged, sweat mixed with fear, and no one slowed down. For the first time since the attack, something new cut through the chaos. Hope. Small. Fragile. But alive. She floated in and out of awareness, never fully awake, never fully gone. Sounds reached her in fragments, voices muffled as if underwater, sharp beeps that rose and fell, the distant wail of a siren fading into echoes. Bright light burned through her closed eyelids, then vanished, then returned again. Time had no shape. Seconds felt like hours. Hours disappeared entirely. Pain was everywhere. Her neck throbbed with a deep, crushing ache that made every breath feel dangerous. Her chest burned as if it had been split open and stitched back together. Her stomach tightened in waves, fear and instinct tangling together until she couldn't tell which hurt more. Even her thoughts felt bruised. Her soul felt sore. She tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but nothing came out. Her mouth wouldn't move. Panic surged instantly. Why can't I talk? Where am I? She tried to lift her hands. Nothing. The terror of being trapped inside her own body closed in, heavy and suffocating. Then one thought cut through everything else. The baby. A cold fear wrapped around her heart. Was the baby alive? Was she still pregnant? She tried to move again, tried to scream, but only a faint sound escaped her throat. Tears slipped down the sides of her face, unnoticed. The motion suddenly changed. She felt herself being rushed forward, lights streaking overhead as doors burst open. Voices sharpened, doctors calling out numbers, instructions, orders. Hands moved fast over her body. Someone pressed on her abdomen. Someone else held her neck steady. And then, clarity. Her eyes opened fully, locking onto the ceiling above her. The noise crashed in all at once. She gasped, a real breath this time, raw and painful. Terror flooded her, followed by confusion so overwhelming it made her sob. She heard someone say her name. That was when it hit her. She had been dead. And somehow, against everything, she had come back. The bruises on her neck and arms were just the surface. Beneath them, muscles torn, airways still sore, and internal injuries that no one could see whispered of how close she had come to death. Every movement reminded her body of that night. Pain that flared in her chest, her back, her stomach. Even as she lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping steadily beside her, she felt fragile, as if a single wrong move could undo the miracle of being alive. Sleep brought no relief. Nightmares replayed every second of the attack, every shadow of his face, every tightening grip. Flashbacks seized her during the day, triggered by the smallest noises, the slam of a door, a raised voice, a hand that moved too quickly. Guilt gnawed at her. She questioned herself, wondering if she could have done more, said more, survived differently. Fear settled deep in her chest, a constant, heavy weight. The baby's condition was fragile. Doctors monitored every heartbeat, every movement, every flutter, cautious and meticulous. Each beep, each flutter of life inside her felt like a fragile thread, connecting her to the future she almost lost. Police interviews followed. Questions asked calmly, clinically, but they hit like blows. The reality of betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. The man she had trusted, the father of her child, had tried to end her life. Survival didn't feel like triumph. It felt burdensome, like carrying a weight no one else could see. And yet, in the quiet moments between fear and exhaustion, she realized the path forward was clear. It would be long. It would be painful. But she had a future to fight for, and for the first time, she understood the cost of living and surviving. Recovery came in fits and starts, slow, painful, and far from complete. Every movement reminded her of the night that almost ended her life. Scar tissue ached, muscles protested, and the emotional wounds were deeper still. There were days when standing felt like an accomplishment, when simply breathing felt like a victory. Each small step forward was a reminder that she was still here, still alive, still fighting. Legal consequences loomed over her like a shadow. Court dates, charges, statements, and hearings filled her calendar. The truth that had been buried behind her husband's violence now emerged under harsh lights and scrutinizing eyes. Witnesses, doctors, and evidence all pieced together the story no one had believed could be real. Each courtroom session was exhausting, terrifying, but also strangely empowering. Her voice, once silenced by fear, became a weapon of truth. Motherhood became her anchor. The baby she had fought to protect gave her a reason to wake, to heal, to keep breathing through the pain. Every flutter, every cry, every smile was a reminder of the life she had refused to let go. Reflecting on how close she came to disappearing entirely, She understood the fragility and value of life like never before. Survival, she realized, was not just existing. It was reclaiming her voice, refusing to be silenced, and standing tall even when the world had tried to erase her. She carried no desire for revenge, only the quiet, unwavering strength of resilience. Even after staring death in the face, life could fight back, and she was living proof.